In today's episode of Solved Mysteries, we're going to dive into a case that was considered a huge sensation in England during 1968, known as the Mary Bell case. What's interesting about this case is the fact that an 11-year-old girl killed two small boys in Newcastle, England by strangulation. So, who exactly is Mary Bell? Why did she kill two small boys, especially at such a young age? Also, are we dealing with a potential serial killer? These are questions that we'll be answering as we dive deep into the clues of this case. Let's get into this case now. Born on May 26, 1957, a girl named Mary Flora Bell was brought to this world by her mother, Betty McCricket, who was a 17-year-old prostitute that was often absent from her family home, traveling to Glasgow for work. It is not known who Mary's biological father was, but for the most of her life, Mary believed it to be Billy Bell, who was a habitual criminal who was later arrested for armed robbery, but she was already a baby when Bill married her mother. Independent accounts from her family members strongly suggest that Betty had more than once attempted to kill Mary and make her death look accidental during her first few years of life. Mary was constantly unwanted by her own mother, even as Betty stated, quote, "Take that thing away from me," end quote. Her family was also suspicious when Mary fell from a window and when she accidentally consumed sleeping pills. On one such occasion, an independent witness saw Betty giving the pills to her daughter as sweets. Also, according to later accounts given by Mary herself, her mother began to prostitute her out when she was just 4 years old, though this remains uncorroborated by family members. They did know, however, that Mary's young life had already been marked by loss. She had already seen a 5-year-old friend run over and killed by a bus. Given all that happened, it did not surprise them that Mary, by the age of 10, had become a strange child, withdrawn and manipulative, always hovering on the edge of violence. But there was a lot they didn't know. After the fall Mary had experienced, it was reported that she suffered brain damage as a result, but now this damage is attributed to childhood abuse from her own mother. Mary had damage to her prefrontal cortex, an area associated with voluntary movement and decision-making. On May 25, 1968, the day before her 11th birthday, Mary Bell strangled a 4-year-old Martin Brown in a derelict house. Police were absolutely mystified. Besides a little blood and saliva on the victim's face, there were no obvious signs of violence. There was, however, an empty bottle of painkillers on the floor near the body. In the absence of better information, they assumed Martin Brown had swallowed the pills, so his death was ruled as an accident. She believed to have committed this crime alone, but she and her friend Norma Joyce Bell, who had no relations, were both actually involved in this murder. But Martin's grieving family have started to speculate Mary as the prime suspect when little Mary Bell showed up on their doorstep in the days after Martin's death and requested to see him. Martin's mother gently explained to her that Martin was dead, but Mary said she already knew that and she just wanted to see the body in the coffin. And because of that, Martin's mother slammed the door in her face. Mary and Norma also broke in and vandalized a nursery in Scotswood, leaving notes that claim responsibility for the killing, but the police dismissed this incident as a prank. On July 31st, 1968, the two girls took part in another strangulation death of a 3-year-old Brian Howe on Wasteland in the same Scotswood area. Police reports concluded that Mary Bell later returned to his body to carve an M into the boy's abdomen and used scissors to cut off some of his hair, scratch his legs, and mutilate his genitals. When Brian's sister went looking for him, Mary and Norma offered to help. They searched the neighborhood, and Mary even pointed out the concrete blocks that hid his body. But Norma said he wouldn't be there, and Brian's sister moved on. When Brian's body was finally found, the neighborhood was panicked. 2 boys were dead in as many months. Police interviewed local children, hoping someone had seen something that would lead to a suspect. Mary and Norma did a poor job of disguising their interest in the investigation in their interviews with the police. Both acted strangely. Norma was excited and Mary evasive, especially when police pointed out that she had been seen with Brian Howe on the day of his death. On the day of Brian's burial, Mary was spotted lurking outside his house. She even laughed and rubbed her hands together when she saw his coffin. They called her back for a second interview, and Mary, perhaps sensing investigators were closing in, made up a story about having seen an 8-year-old boy hit Brian on the day he died. The boy, she said, had been carrying a pair of broken scissors. That was Mary Bell's biggest mistake. The mutilation of the body with scissors had been kept from the press and public. It was a detail known only to investigators and one other person, Brian's murderer. Both Norma and Mary broke down under further questioning. Norma began cooperating with the police and implicated Mary, who herself admitted to being present during Brian Howe's murder, but tried to place the blame on Norma. Both girls were charged and a trial date was set. On December 17, 1968, at Newcastle Assizes, Norma Bell was regarded as an unwilling accomplice who had fallen under a bad influence, so she was acquitted, but Mary Bell was convicted of manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. The jury took their lead from her diagnosis by court-appointed psychiatrists who described her as displaying classic symptoms of psychopathy. The judge, Justice Cusack, described her as dangerous and said she posed a very grave risk to other children. She was sentenced to be detained at Her Majesty's pleasure, effectively an indefinite sentence of imprisonment. She was initially sent to the Red Bank Secure Unit in Newton Les Willows, Lancashire, the same facility that would house John Venables, one of Jane Bulger's killers, 25 years later. After her conviction, Bell was the focus of a great deal of attention from the British press and also from the German magazine Stern. Her mother repeatedly sold stories about her to the press and often gave reporters writings she claimed to be by her daughter. Bell herself made headlines in September 1977 when she briefly escaped from Moore Court Open Prison, where she had been held since her transfer from Young Offenders Institution to an adult prison a year earlier. Her penalty for this was a loss of prison privileges for 28 days. In 1980, 23-year-old Bell was released from Askham Grange Open Prison after serving 12 years and was granted anonymity, including a new name, allowing her to start a new life. Bell allegedly came back to Tyneside on several occasions and had lived there for some time after her release. 4 years after finishing her sentence, she had a daughter on May 25, 1984. The girl knew nothing of her mother's past until reporters discovered Bell's location in 1998, and the pair had to leave their home with bed sheets over their heads. Bell's daughter's anonymity was originally protected only until she reached the age of 18. However, on May 21, 2003, Bell won a high court battle to have her own anonymity and that of her daughter extended for life. Consequently, any court order permanently protecting the identity of a convict in Britain is sometimes known as a Mary Bell order. The order was later updated to include Bell's granddaughter in January 2009, who was referred to as C. Bell's current whereabouts are now unknown. Overall, the case of Mary Flora Bell is very surprising and unfortunate. Although it's not justified that Mary has killed 2 innocent young boys, the actions and responsibilities of a parent can truly dictate a child's behavior going forward in his or her future. It's truly tragic what Mary has gone through as a child, and many of that can be possibly attributed to Betty's horrible parenting. Whatever the case may be, the 2 young boys, Martin and Brian, will be truly missed, as their parents probably still grieve for them to this very day. Still, Mary is currently out of prison and her whereabouts are still unknown, but hopefully she's not causing harm to anybody else. Hence why this case is solved. Hey guys and gals, this is MisterShinRamen, and I just want to thank you for making it this far. Did you enjoy the video? If so, it would be greatly appreciated if you can leave a like on this video and subscribe to this channel for more future content. Till next time, stay safe and stay scared.